Yep.
All right, looks like we're live. Hello, everyone out there. My name is John Graves. I'm the Director of Operations here at ArtistWorks, Napa, California. I want to welcome you all to this month's ArtistWorks Live, where we're going to be talking with Eric Marienthal, our online jazz saxophone teacher here at ArtistWorks. We're going to be taking questions from you, the audience, so please get those questions ready. If you please include your student name with your question, you'll qualify for a 3-month extension to your current subscription. All right, let's introduce our guests. Our first guest is a 20-time Grammy nominee, 4-time winner, 3-time Emmy winner. He has contributed to the scores of such movies as The Incredibles, Armageddon, Enemy of the State, the National Treasure movies, just to name a few. He's the leader of the Big Fat Band, and he's joining us here today. Welcome, Gordon Goodwin.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for having me here.
How are you, sir?
Look at this. These headphones are a mess. I'm trying to untangle them. I'm crazy.
It happens. Where are you joining us from today?
I'm joining you from my studio here in my home. So I have my house, and then I have a driveway, and I walk across the driveway, and I'm here at work. It's pretty great.
It's a good commute. Nice commute.
Nice commute. That's right. Exactly.
Okay, our next guest is a 7-time Grammy nominee, 2-time winner. He has recorded 14 solo albums and is a member of the Chick Corea Electric Band and Gordon Goodwin's Big Fat Band. For 18 years, he has produced an annual concert for the High Hopes Head Injury Program in Tustin, California, which has raised $1.5 million to date. This month marks 1 year that he's been teaching jazz saxophone online at ArtistWorks. Happy anniversary. Welcome, Eric Marienthal.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much.
How's it going, Eric? How are you?
I just want you to know that it was my idea to have Gordon, on this show. So, I take full responsibility no matter how the direction of our conversation goes.
John, do you think it's a little pretentious that he's got his award certificates behind him?
A little bit.
Okay, wait. Let's turn your camera around.
I just think that's really weird, for guys to have their stuff just,
Yeah.
So
something about that.
Yeah, I just don't understand why people do that kind of thing. Just to,
Oh, that's amazing.
Hey, what do you think would be a better the defensive implement? The Grammy, which is heavy and solid, or the Emmy, which has these pointy. I'm telling you, these little things are completely pointy.
Yeah, both. I think both are illegal on airplanes. So
that's probably true.
All right, so let me.
That was the comedy portion of the show, right there.
Yeah, let me quickly remind our viewers that today's questions are going to be coming solely from you, the audience. So although time will probably only permit me to get to a small amount of these, please start sending them in now. We're going to hit as many of these as possible. Please include your student name, like I said, with your question if you want to qualify for an extra 3-month addition onto your current subscription. I'll announce the winner before we wrap up today. It's going to be a great hour, as you can see already. We've got some characters here. So let's start with the questions, is there any last words from the guys before we dive in?
Well, that sounds ominous.
I will say that, okay, let me do this. You know what that is? You know what that is?
No.
That's Frank Rosalino. Playing a song from a record he released called Turn Me Loose, where he also sang, and we're hearing that on my radio show on KJazz, which is airing right this very minute as we speak. And I am encouraging people not to listen to that, but to tune into this.
All right.
You know why? Because I'm a team player. That's what that's about.
Gordon, let me ask you: is your radio show only today?
Actually, it's nice. Oh, you just lobbed that in for me, didn't you?
There you go.
It's every Saturday. It's called Fat Tracks with Gordon Goodwin, and it's every Saturday from 12 to 2 Pacific Coast Standard Time. And the radio station's KJazz 88.1, but you can listen online as well or on the radio app. So that's been a new thing. I've been doing it for about 26 weeks, and
Nice.
it's so it's invigorating because I'm discovering music again. You know, like when we're younger and you're listening, you're going to the record store every weekend, you're just discovering and buying music and soaking it in. And then after a while, you become just professional and you're busy with your own stuff. You don't often have as much time to find out what else is happening. But now I kind of have to in order to keep the radio show fresh. And it's been really, really great. I'm really enjoying doing it.
Yeah, and you know, a good point to that too for students and anybody watching is that, you know, doing that, and I'm doing something similar myself online, where you're kind of part of your job is to not only because you want to, but part of, you know, in your case, putting a radio show together, is that you're discovering, you know, new music, maybe new recordings from artists that you're familiar with, and perhaps you thought you had heard every record from. And that's a really great thing that I try to talk about in my school is how we want to expand ourselves and expand our horizons in terms of what we listen to, and it you know, it helps with this to, you know, to be listening to as much music and you know, try to get outside of our usual realm of what we listen to and continue to explore and try to find new things that can inspire us.
Eric, do you listen to, or do you encourage students to listen to music that they may not even like initially? Value there?
You know, there's value in everything. I mean, there's even value in, you know, perhaps listening to things for what perhaps, you know, it's all subjective. Hey, music is art and art is subjective. And so to say what is good and bad is all about, you know, that's determined by who's listening. But, you know, a lot of times I'll listen to something that, you know, and realize, oh, well, I want to make sure that I don't do that, you know, or it's a good example of what to play for somebody. Yeah. You know, maybe the time is messed up, in my opinion, or the pitch may be messed up, or the sound or whatever, or the way the band is communicating or whatever. And so, you know, sometimes it's a good educational tool to check it out, you know, in reverse.
Right, sure. Right.
Well, speaking of the way the band communicating, I have a question here from Xavier Noria. Sorry if I'm not pronouncing that perfectly. So this is the first question for you guys from the audience. How do you guys structure a rehearsal with the Big Fat Band? Do you work on fragments to polish them, more on themes as a whole, and comment on issues as they arise?
That's assuming that we actually do rehearse.
Yeah, that's right. It can be pretty precious to find a 3-hour block where all those guys could actually show up and be at the same place at the same time. It's tough. Mm-hmm. And I really wish that we could play together more than we do, because what we're trying to do now as a band is find that deeper level of nuance in the music. More than just playing the right notes, playing the right rhythms, playing them tight. I mean, they do that. That's our culture anyway. It's always going to be tight. But do we sound like, think about a band like Count Basie. They play the same charts every night on the road, and there becomes a deepening of the understanding of the music when that happens, and I don't know that there's a real shortcut to that. Fortunately, a lot of us have been playing music together for, you know, decades, you know, so we can get up to speed pretty quickly. But typically, Eric, I don't know, I'd say we run a chart down once, and then we go back and hit a few spots, and we'll say, how about we scoop this a little deeper, or we fall a little quicker, or we make this a little shorter, and a lot of those decisions are less from me than from Eric and Andy Martin and Wayne Bergeron, the section leaders, or Ray Brinker, the drummer. We'll talk about ways that they think that they can interpret the notated parts. Yeah. Add a little depth to them. Yeah,
and also the way you write your music too. I mean, there's not a lot, you know, not only are you writing the notes, but you're writing the inflections and the articulations, and there's very little that you don't, because that's a big part of the composition of the song, how it's interpreted. You got a phone call there, by the way.
Should I take it?
Well,
you never believe who it is. It's Sal. Should I take it?
Probably not, actually.
Okay, all right.
Who is it?
Sal Lozano, who plays alto sax in the band next to Eric.
Oh, no.
Yeah, that conversation will go on for quite a while, so perhaps we should hold up on that. But yeah, I mean, as far as rehearsal is concerned, you know, a lot of times the rehearsal partly is to make sure that, there's no copying errors in the charts, because when you get to the studio, the last thing you want to deal with is playing a wrong note, because that's what's on the paper. But yeah, I mean, it's like Gordon said, the nuance and what we do in rehearsal and is deciding exactly how to nuance something, how much to scoop or how much to fall off. But as far as accuracy, that really is sort of left up. It's sort of, I don't want to say second nature, but that's just assumed that we're all, no matter what the song or the style or whatever, we're going to know the notes. If it's something that we can't read, we're going to take it upon ourselves to, practice the music before we get into the studio or the live concert, and then, make sure that we're playing as a band, and that breaks down to playing as a section. The lead player in my section, it's important for me to play consistently every time, so that everybody else in the section knows how the top voice is going to go, and then it's all of our responsibility to listen across the section and make sure that we're creating one sound, because that's what the composer intended.
I mean, make no mistake, these guys pretty much sight read every chart, more or less perfectly the first time. There's very little wrong with it the first time through. So we're getting into deeper levels of stylistic manipulation when we rehearse. Right. I actually do learn a lot from when the music gets out of my head, and then it gets, usually I'm programming into digital performer. Then I orchestrate it, and then the guys play it. And there are times when I go, I thought that would be better, not from their point of view, but from my point of view compositionally. And there are other times where I'll go, wow, that really is cool, and I never really thought that would be a cool, distinctive moment. But some alchemy, that happens between whatever I wrote down and how they play it, sometimes produces like that magical thing. Because the more of those you get in a chart, then then the more effective it is.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing too, from a band member's point of view, a lot of times I'll get, a lot of the music, like music in general, in Gordon's band maybe in particular, where the parts are, Gordon always hates it when we say that his music is hard. Music, it is definitely challenging, but it's written for a reason. But you get focused on your part and your section's part, and sometimes you don't get the big picture. It's fun. It's really fun to, after a recording is done, to sit back and listen to the whole thing as it comes together. It's like a puzzle that now is all fitting. And you go, oh, now I see how that worked, and it makes, now I get what the overall picture was meant to be. And by listening or by thinking about that when you're playing and realizing that your part in a big band is part of the overall intention, the overall composition, the overall arrangement, it helps us as players make more sense of what we're playing.
Yeah. I would quickly reference Eric's comment about music being hard or easy. And I've moved away from characterizing not just music, but anything in life with some variant of those terms, because I think it kind of predisposes.
Yeah, I told you. He hates the word hard. See, I told you.
I think it predisposes the outcome to a degree. Like if you think, oh man, this is going to be hard, and then I don't know why I'm holding a flute, but this is going to be hard. That you
it's going to be really, really hard.
Yeah. And I think it's a bit of an excuse. I prefer challenging. I think certainly things can be challenging, but challenging has more of an optimism and a more proactive sound to it.
Right.
Challenging, I can do it. Maybe I won't do it this time. Maybe not next week, but I'll get there. And I think that's a better message to send, certainly to young kids. But it's worked good in my life too. We went and did some concerts with James Morrison down in Australia, and this is like if you don't know him, you should Google that guy, because he plays trumpet, trombone, saxophone, piano, bass, guitar, drums.
Wow.
He composes, he drives race cars, he flies airplanes, he does everything, and he doesn't think about the fact that, well, the trumpet is way different than the trombone, so that's too hard. He just goes, oh, and he just opens himself to it. He's a little bit unique, clearly, but it was inspiring for me. And I'm kind of a multitasker too. playing piano and saxophone and writing and all that stuff to see, you know what? Because most of the limitations we have on ourselves come from within anyway.
Yeah.
When you look at it. So that's my thing.
Yeah, interesting sidebar. One before we go into another question. One interesting thing about that, you know, James Morrison played with us with the Fat Band in Tokyo at Blue Note, and he was our featured guest one week. And at the sound check, he came up and he had his trombone and his trumpet, and he put them on his horn stands and did the sound check. And we went off to the dressing room before the first show, and he left his horn from the stand. You know, no big deal. And we play a few tunes, and Gordon introduces him, and he comes up, and he doesn't play any warm-up notes. He just plays his, you know, plays up to the trumpet, picks up the trombone, puts it next to the trombone. After those two shows, the next day he came back, and, you know, getting our stuff set up, and I look over and I see that James's horns are still on the stand. He didn't take them home the night before, you know. And so I was thinking about it, and I realized that he never warmed up. He never played. And the third night we played, the same thing. The first note that he played was on the stand. He didn't even go toot, 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 you know, just in the mic in front of the audience live. And so a few of us cornered him and said, hey, you know, what gives? You know, how is it that you're able to play these instruments so incredibly well and seemingly not even, you know, warm up, much less practice? And his answer was so counterintuitive to what I've always, and all my, you know, my friends have always felt, where like he said that, yeah, I'm sure at one point obviously he practiced his butt off, but he said that, you know, the more I practice, the more it distracts me from playing the music that I want to play. And that was it was interesting to hear that perspective, because for me, the more I practice, the more I can feel like I can just play what I want to play, and I'm not restricted as much as, you know, if I'm not, you know, the reed is an issue, but beyond that, just the ability to play and the coordination between your fingers and your tongue, and just practicing, feeling like you're really on it. So that's like 99.999% of everybody I've ever talked to, including myself, in terms of how it feels better to play. But it was interesting to hear, you know, that kind of a perspective from such a genius musician.
Right. That's great. All right, just for time, sensitive to the time we have here, let's move on to another question. Let's see. So here's one from Anthony Elsatino. His username is Keystone. Says, how can I get into making a living or a partial living in writing, jingles, etc.? Where would I start? So that's a huge question, but in starting points or.
Well, there are certainly networking moves that you can make, but I think that's a secondary concern. The main thing to be a writer is you just have to start. You have to put the first note down, and you have to then put the next note down, and you have to do it every day. Every day. Maybe you only write for an hour, maybe for a half hour, but you have to keep committed to it, and you have to. I remember when I was working at Warner Brothers for the animation shows we were doing. And animation, as you probably know, is a lot of notes, you know, a lot of timings, a lot of complicated puzzles to solve compositionally. And each episode is 22 minutes, and it's nonstop music, right? Never breaks, and it's fast music because the characters are running around and jumping, and the music has to follow that. So you look at this mountain of work ahead of you at the first day, and I go, I can't look at that 22 minutes. I can't look at the top of the mountain. I have to look at the first minute. What's my first minute? And I start, and I would write 3 minutes a day, which is pretty good average for that kind of writing. I mean, when Carl Stalling was doing that for Warner Brothers, or for Bugs Bunny, he had 3 weeks to write 6 minutes, right? We had to do 22 minutes in about 7 to 10 days sometimes, you know. So you couldn't really obsess about wait for inspiration or anything. You just had to go. So I do the first minute, and I go, okay, what's the next minute? And I write that into the first day, about 3 minutes. I still feel like I can't look at that mountaintop. Not yet, you know. Second day, I'd have 6 minutes. Third day, all right, I'm getting like almost halfway there. So I think that's the key to it, you know. For me, I studied scores like crazy. I just looked at other people's and I listened and I said, how did they get that sound, and analyzed it very clinically. And I listened to as many people as I could, even people that I didn't like, because like Eric said, you know, that kind of help you define your choices. Why don't I like this guy? Do I not like it because he writes too dissonant, or does he write too? I don't know, you know. And I think that's worthy nowadays. Especially, we tend to just put ourselves in these little bubbles and listen to the same thing all the time, and our culture enables that for us as well these days. So expose yourself to as many things as you can, and listen to every style of music. I don't believe in specializing. Even though people would peg me as a big band guy, I love writing for orchestras. I love writing pop music. I think you can maybe hear that in the music of the Big Fat Band. You know, wide range of styles. And we believe in that. And then you're going to find your way, because every writer does that. Every writer, you can read the books, but we all roll around on the ground and discover ourselves, who we are, what is our voice. And then, as you're doing that, something else happens and other people hear about it. And then maybe you put a band together, you play the charts, and just things open up. Nowadays, this may be easier than it used to be, because you can put a SoundCloud link up and you can kind of be proactive about publicizing, you know, yourself and your work, and don't apologize for that. A lot of musicians, especially jazz musicians, think that marketing is unseemly because the music should be enough. And I'm here to tell you, I don't think it is enough. I don't think it's enough. I wish it was enough, but I think you really have to realize the world we live in, you know, it's a massive information, and you have to find your way to find out who you are, and then tell the world.
Well, that's an interesting point too, because as far as marketing yourself is concerned, you know, I agree. You know, now, you know, Gordon, in my day, you know, not to, you know, say that we, you know, you're, you know, riding a horse to school, you know. But back in our day, you know, we didn't have the internet, and you know, like my son, for instance, you know, he's a guitar player, singer, songwriter. He's got his band, and he can get his music out there to the world. You know, we debate about that all the time, where, you know, putting your music out there for free, you know, the advantage is that you're getting yourself known and people can hear you, and perhaps that can lead to gigs. But also, you know, downside obviously is that you are putting your music out there for free, and it costs money to make music, and also, hey, you're looking at becoming a professional player. But I agree with Gordon that it really is important for, you know, because people ask me that question all the time. How do I break into the business? And taking advantage of social media and the internet in general is good. Going too far is certainly possible. However, you know, I see a lot of stuff online where people are promoting them, you know, every single thing that they seem to do. I'm trying to interview today. You know, they put on Facebook, or I'm, you know, hey, I turned my back ligature screw a little 1/4 inch, you know, tighter today.
Right.
I mean, you know, yeah, you want to be smart and promote yourself so that you can be exposed, but you know, you have to be cognizant of where you're, you know, going too much, you know, to the point of being obnoxious. That's
a really great point, because I think that there needs to be a certain level of humility and self-deprecation involved in how you do that. I think Eric's right, because we all can tell the difference when people post on Facebook and it's a kind of a braggadocio thing, and other people that post and I'm just sharing what I love. What do you think? You know,
right.
It's a tricky thing. Like, okay, we started off this little segment, and I held up the Grammy and the Emmys as a gag. And the reason I did it is because it's ridiculous for someone to hold up their Grammys and right? I know it's ridiculous because I know, Eric and I know that we don't do this to win Grammys. Grammys are great. It's awesome. It's a lot of fun to go to the ceremony and do that. But that's not the point. My music's no better because I have Grammys. And the times I've lost doesn't mean my music's any worse. So I think that it is a matter of finding that balance.
That's great. All right, so more and more questions are coming in, and let's get to the inevitable subject of improvisation. We knew this was going to come up. So, Eric and Gordon, how can I improve from a poor improviser to a better very general question there, but maybe you guys can even demonstrate with some playing, or you guys want to have some back and forth or something, just do some improv.
Frankly, I don't think it's possible for you to improve. That's not going to happen. What if I said that?
Wow. You went there.
I felt that way when I was a college kid. I was trying to figure out how to improvise, and I was frustrated that I felt like when I was parroting back other people's licks, like Charlie Parker licks and stuff, that didn't feel like improvisation. It felt just like a contrivance or something. And so I studied with a guy, and I know Eric studied with him too. His name was Warren Marsh. His name is W-A-R-N-E, a tenor saxophone player from New York, and he had the most unique style on the tenor sax. He didn't play licks. I don't think he played the same thing twice in his life. He was completely spontaneous and organic and interesting and compelling. And so I studied with Warren, and he unlocked it for me. He had me do some exercises that helped me to find out what was important to me as an improviser, but more than that, to get my brain agile, so that I could react quickly in real time to what else was happening around me, either in the rhythm section or to react to something I just played, even, internally. So that was a big thing for me. I don't know. What was your experience with Warren, Eric?
Yeah, well, when I studied with Warren, as you know, I was a junior in high school, and 80%, if not more, of what he said kind of just, it was over my head. And,
oh, really? Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, because he would speak a bit abstractly sometimes, and when he played, it became a lot more direct, and I could tell, oh, this is what he means. But with Warren, he comes from the Lenny Tristano school, the Conants, and it's just it's really cool. It's very artistic, and it's a different approach. It was funny last night. A lot of times I'll go online before I go shut down the studio and go to bed, and I was. I want to listen to some Charlie Parker. So I listened to Charlie Parker. Well, I listened to Charlie Parker in Strings, Just Friends, and just, hearing that again. I haven't heard that for a while. But there's a great YouTube video of Charlie Parker playing with Lester Young. And just watching them both play, but I was kind of focusing on Charlie Parker. And here's a musician who's famously, well, we all know, the tragic life of Charlie Parker. Yet when he was playing, it was just like such genius. And you think about, how did he get to, to kind of point back to this question? I mean, how did he get to where he was? I mean, part of it obviously is his God-given talent. But he actually talks about in this really cool interview that's also on YouTube, where he's interviewed by Paul Desmond, which is a super cool, everybody should see, where you actually, one of the few times you get to hear Charlie Parker speak, and he's, really eloquent in his speaking. But he talked about, practicing 11 to 14 hours a day for 4 years or so, anyway, when I think about playing, improvising, and how to improve my improvising, there's two sides of it. Part of it is the theoretical side, the theory side, the harmonic side, and then part of it is the musical side. And so, the harmony side, as I like to talk about in my school, is, just making sure you know the language of music, which are your scales, and the scales that correspond with various chords, and kind of taking all the questions out of, if you look at a song that you want to improvise over, and there's a couple of changes that you're not familiar with. If you're not familiar with the scale that goes over a major 7-sharp-5 chord, or or whatever, get those things out of the way, and then, just a lot of those kinds of theoretical points, making sure you're familiar there. But then also doing what I was describing last night, and just listening to players who you're attracted to. In my case, it's endless. Charlie Parker and Herbie Hancock, and I could go on forever. And depending on the style of music you want to play, and it's not. People are always worried about, if you listen to one particular thing or one particular style that you're gonna, or one player, that you're copying them too much and you're just going to sound like that person. That's never the case. In my opinion, you're always going to be you. You might internalize it in the way the way that you studied some other player may come out. You may even play a transcription. But the way it actually comes out is it's still your voice. It's going to be the way you play. And that's why we want to become better players, better technical players, so that we can express ourselves exactly how we're hearing it in our heads.
And that's actually illustrated by if Eric took my tenor and used the same reed, mouthpiece, ligature, and he would play it, and he would sound like Eric. And he could hand it back to me, and I would sound like Gordon. And so that's what's fascinating to me, in terms of how there's some hard to define essence of who you are. So I completely agree with Eric. The best thing is to listen to everybody, soak everything in. Some people feel like, we don't go to a desert island and just isolate yourself in order to find yourself. I don't believe that. I think it's the opposite.
Well, can we hear some examples of Gordon's sound versus Eric's sound, and maybe some improv stuff?
Yeah, maybe we could. I don't know how the delay's going to go, but maybe Eric, we could trade a little bit on
sure.
Or something.
I happen to have my alto right here.
Oh, okay.
I have my tenor and soprano over here, though. Over there.
Your F sharp key just broke. Is it okay now?
My yeah, exactly. My F sharp spring broke on the road in Germany last week. You know that. And,
you should take better care of your equipment. That's really irresponsible.
Well, I happen to have like this killer repairman in Frankfurt in the audience, and he came to the room, and I got a picture of my horn, like half the horn apart, on my desk, and me freaking out, going, "Man, I hope you know what you're doing." But
we're so lucky. All that stuff always happens to Eric. His horn repairman happens to be in the audience. Hey, so why don't we do that? And maybe we could also kind of show the people about listening, reacting to each other as we interact.
Okay. Yeah, and if you guys can tilt your cameras down a little bit, maybe they'll be able to see maybe a little bit of what you're doing.
There you go.
Yeah. If you can make it fit, if you can't,
There you go.
All right, so we'll do rhythm changes, and of course, I don't even have to say what key we're playing it in because Eric knows. When you say rhythm changes, we're referring to the George Gershwin song, I Got Rhythm. And it's in the key.
I got rhythm. You don't want to hear us sing.
He doesn't know the lyrics of the song clearly, but so it's in the key of B flat. So I'll start, and I'm gonna take a pickup on the end of 3 of the bar before the downbeat of the chorus.
Okay. The delay between the two of us might create a little time issue, but we'll do it.
Because as you know, Eric and I, we normally have perfect time.
Perfect time, by the way.
This is the kind of stuff that Warren would hate. When I would play like all bluesy and emotional, he'd go, cut the emotion out. I go, why? Isn't emotion the whole point? And he would say, not if you're using it as a crutch.
Well, the way, but he would be very emotional, but his emotion came out in his melody. And so, you really, I mean, it's like Dexter. I was listening to Dexter last night. He's incredibly emotional, but there's not a lot of vibrato. I don't think, if I'm not mistaken, a lot of Dexter's playing was really pretty straight, but yet, man, how emotional is that? Right.
And so both Eric and I think have a philosophy that wants to have both of those characteristics, So while we might, play a lick like that kind of stuff, but then next we're going playing chromaticism and more advanced harmonic stuff. So it's the balance of those two those elements that make for an interesting musical conversation.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about what it is that you guys were just playing there then.
I have no idea.
I don't know.
Like Gordon said, we were using a structure of a song, I Got Rhythm. But also taking in consideration our environment, and you couldn't play it at the exact same time, although it seemed to work actually pretty well. But that's a really good example of music is a conversation, whether you're playing just back and forth with two different people or you're playing in a large group. During the improv, in Chick Corea's electric band, we're back together now, and it's such a great example as a member of that band to remember what it means to be in an improvisational setting in a band. The soloist isn't. It's not like band and soloist. It's five in that group. It's five people, and there may be the person playing the solo, but it doesn't mean that everybody else is in a support capacity. When you watch Chick, Gordon came to one of the gigs actually a few weeks ago, and when you watch Chick play, he's playing, but he's got his eyes open, and he's watching the other guys in the band, and you can certainly tell, he's listening, because everything he plays, even when he's soloing, is predicated on what is coming back to him conversationally, and vice versa. What he's playing as a soloist is certainly affecting what everybody else is doing in support, and so that's what makes that group just such an incredible value to be part of, because I'm constantly reminded of what it really means to be in a group setting in a jazz environment. It's always a conversation. That's a cool thing too about the the balance of the volume in that group. We play at a soft volume on stage, and soft volumes so we can all hear each other really well. But even when you play really loud, it becomes a bit distracting. So everybody plays quietly, but the important thing of that is so that we can all hear each other very, very equally, and for that very reason, so we can always be communicating.
I would bring up one other aspect about listening, especially in the context of trading with another musician. It also gives me an opportunity to show you the album cover of Elusive Man, which is the new record by the Little Fat Band. Eric's a member of the band, and on the title track, Eric and I trade. So we have a solo that goes for quite a while on this track, An Elusive Man. Now, the interesting thing with certain musicians is that they are, you'll find that they're such strong presences that it's like a magnet, Like when we hear Michael Brecker, we all want to do that, I hear Cannibal, I want to do that. I love it so much, and it's a natural thing. And Eric also has that same strong presence. So when I'm trading with him, I'm trading with one of the best technicians ever on the saxophone, and I can keep up, but I'm not gonna keep up all the way. But Eric never presses his advantage in that regard, and he listens to me, and what he does, it's reactive. It is a conversation. And I adjudicated a high school band, and there was a girl saxophone player and a kid trumpet player, and they were having a trading thing. This trumpet player was going a lot of fingers and chops, and this girl was playing very tentatively and softly. So I said, so you guys, that was not an equitable conversation. I said, you, my friend, were shouting at this person who was whispering back. I said, so I said, now look, you have a responsibility, young lady, to maybe increase your dynamic range in terms of what you're going to express as a musician. Maybe you're a quiet, shy person, and that's who you are, and that's great. I said, but if you're on stage, and if you're going to have a conversation with that guy, you need to be able to meet that to some degree. And you, on the other hand, need to be able to take it down and not have to play all your stuff all the time. So
right.
It's an interesting topic for sure.
Cool. All right, so a little more technical here. Could you? This is from Lawrence White. Could you talk a bit about using an open mouthpiece with a soft reed versus a closed mouthpiece with a more stiff reed, tone-wise?
Well, the size of the mouthpiece versus the size of the reed. Well, I was going to say it certainly is more about creating the resistance that we play, and the more we always have to just be careful to have enough resistance in our playing. I always talk about the ease of playing. I know it doesn't sound great on this microphone, but when I'm playing, I'm just trying to make it easy. That's my goal. I practice so that when I play, it just feels easy to play. So in my case, I have a really moderate setup. I know I play a metal mouthpiece, but it's a size 7 Beechler, very moderate, 2.5 size reed, very moderate. Some people play massive mouthpiece with a really soft reed. James Carter, for instance, and some people are the opposite. Where we have a really close mouthpiece with a 4.5, 5 reed. So the balance between those two things is the larger your mouthpiece, perhaps a softer reed, or vice versa, to gain that balance. But I was going to say that it's more about the ease of playing versus the resistance. But I guess maybe Gordon, as a woodwind player too, can chime in. But I guess if you go in the direction of a larger mouthpiece with a softer reed, you tend to have a little brighter sound as opposed to the other side of the spectrum with the harder reed with a closer tip opening. It becomes a matter of preference, and it also becomes a matter of experimentation, because there's so many different, there's more to it than just the relationship between the mouthpiece and the reed. It's what's going on in the chamber of the mouthpiece, what's going on with each individual reed. We all know as reed players, buy one box of reeds and you're gonna, they're all natural, and so you're gonna have a wide variation of what, between the 10 reeds that are in your box. But what do you think, Gordon? I mean, do you think the harder the reed, the darker the sound, no matter what size mouthpiece?
For me, that's usually the case, but I think it's also a matter of context, because if I'm playing as a soloist, then I can have a little more latitude about things. Even if a reed, maybe if its pitch isn't as good as I would like, I can maybe get away with that if I'm playing in the section. If I'm playing second tenor and I have to play some low parts and subtone and blend and make sure I'm really in tune with the other guys, then I got to go with a softer reed, because I know I probably don't have to go up and hit a high D, double D, and and wail on that in that context.
But it would change the game if you were to change your mouthpiece and had a closer mouthpiece. If you have a really close mouthpiece and then you use a soft reed on top of that, then you're going to run into number one, pitch issues, because you haven't got enough there to support and get the pitch to lock right in, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And you know, and I get so bored with this topic. I really do. And it to a fault, I think. When I was younger, and I just didn't care about trying to get into that stuff, and consequently, I played terrible equipment. Till I took what became an infamous saxophone lesson with Phil Woods, who told me to get out of his house. You know, essentially, how dare you come to me sounding like this? And it was heartbreaking, but he was right. He made me look at what my big issue was in terms of my sound, and my embouchure was wrong and all that stuff. So, but it's always been a predilection of mine to let me just get to the music, you know,
Yeah.
grab this and go. And some people do that actually pretty well because they're just, some have some natural thing, you know, that they, whatever they pick up and play, they make it work.
Yeah. I always like to equate it to, like, you know, the Harry Potter and his wand, you know, where, I mean, there's so many choices of reeds out there, so many choices of mouthpieces, so many choices of ligatures for that matter. And it really, you know, again, the basic rule is to make sure that there's enough resistance in your setup so that you can get a good sound and you know, have enough room in there to work with the pitch and all. But you also want to make sure that it's not so hard that it's too you know, too difficult to play. But beyond that, it becomes a matter of finding something that really matches you. When Harry Potter walked into the wand shop, you know, and he tries you know, tries the first one and you know, obviously clearly it was the wrong wand, but he finally finds the right one, right? And the music comes up and the lights come up and his hair blown back and it's, you know,
Go ahead. Just give me another underscore.
that was good. I got the one. It's the right one for me. Go on. Stop singing Among Us. Stop. Now.
Don't point that thing at me, pal.
All right, so we're bouncing around here because I want to be able to touch on all sorts of different topics here. This one's kind of interesting. It's from Tom Watson. This is for Gordon and Eric. With the small revival of vinyl that I've noticed happening lately, will the big fat band or Eric, any of your solo stuff, ever produce a recording on vinyl for sale? I really miss the days of the liner notes.
Yeah, I will say I just had this conversation with my manager this week, and because we, which gives me opportunity to hold this record up, which is our Christmas record that we re-released last year. It's coming out again, but we thought, let's do a vinyl release of this. So that leads to the question of how many copies do we press of that? How many people agree with Tom? It was right about his you know, affection for vinyl. I think vinyl sounds great too. So then we started to look at the numbers, and it turned out, for us to press like 1,000 copies of vinyl, like about $7,000. And then will we sell 1,000 copies? I don't know. Can we spend another $7,000? And this leads into the problem that is Jazz's problem and our problem a lot, is how do we make the economics of this business work when people aren't buying music in any format? They're going on YouTube and they're listening to whatever they want at any time. I love YouTube. This radio show I do, I use it like crazy. It's a great tool. But that leaves a big problem for artists to try to be able to afford to make records that are not just throw up a mic and run through some tunes and record them. They take a little more care, and the records that we make take resources. So for me, the issue is one of economics when it comes to vinyl. I'd like to do it. I'm not sure we can. Maybe on a future record, probably not on the Christmas record at this point. We just released a Little Fat Band record, and now we have our own label. So we kind of cut off the middleman of another label. We're self-releasing, so we can control every aspect of how the music gets out there. But that also means we need to have to write the checks to the distributor and to the people that press the records and the PR people and all that. So for me, it's well worth it.
Well, we have lots of people writing in saying, "I'd buy one, I'd buy one, I'd buy one." So, what about you, Eric? All your solo stuff and stuff you do with Chuck and John? Have you ever thought about putting anything out on vinyl, or have you?
Yeah, no. My first 3 records came out on vinyl. My first 3 records came out on vinyl and cassette and CDs. That's how old I am. Yeah, I mean, like Gordon said, it can be pretty cost prohibitive, but on the other hand, just if you respect your music to the point where you want to, have it in the, some people still prefer the digital sound even, and now that bit rates have come way up since the early 80s. It's a different story than it was when it was all 16-bit or less. But it is, an interesting thing because it becomes kind of a talking point. And when you promote your record, people are going to say, "Oh, wow, and it's out on vinyl." And so it's going to be intriguing about the project itself and the vinyl in particular. And people might, I think at this stage where we are in the record business, it's sort of, it's a resurgence, obviously, and it's intriguing. And hey, I brought my turntable back out from the garage and dusted it off, and back in the day, I had a really nice one. Our buddy Sal Lozano, who called Gordon a little while ago, he just got a beautiful new turntable, and I went. My son just moved in to a new place, and I went over and checked it out. And there's a turntable. They're listening to records. He's in his mid-20s. So it's definitely a thing. It's just a matter of the reality from this side of it, being able to afford to really do it, and will it be, is it an investment at that point, or is it going to end up being cost effective?
Yeah, as far as liner notes go, and I know what he's talking about in terms of like having that big thing to hold up and look at the artwork and all that. But there actually is probably unprecedented access to artists like Eric, through platforms like ArtistWorks or Facebook or all the social news. I think there's more access than ever before.
Yeah.
In terms of really kind of trying to get inside the music and knowing what the artist is doing. I think it's a problem is it's like a jungle of social networking, and where is that information?
Right.
Nonetheless, we just got a turntable recently, and it sounds so great. I can't believe that we got away from that ever.
Yeah. Speaking of releasing records, we've had a couple people asking about Eric. When is the ArtistWorks jazz band gonna get together and release something?
Oh, well, that's partially a question for John Graves. You.
Yeah. Well, I guess we'll talk about that offline then, huh? But hey, you, John Patitucci, Chuck Loeb, George Whitty. I mean, come on. Peter Erskine now, man. Yeah. That'd be some.
I'd be down with that. Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Well, we're approaching the end of our conversation here. I got a couple more I'm going to try to squeeze in. Let's see. So, what's the? This is from Larry Munoz. What's the best approach to getting original music, contemporary jazz in my case, out to enough ears to be able to fill up a room of people who would view my music as worth buying tickets to see live? So again, another kind of self-promotion, self-marketing type of thing here. Any tips on that? Or?
Yeah. Hey, Larry. How's it going, man? Yeah, I mean, social media. I mean, really, right? I mean, it's immediate. It's right there. It's free. So use the recordings that you have of yourself and get them out there. Create a venue, a situation where you go out and where you can invite people to come. Hopefully pay to come hear you play, and use social media. I mean, gosh, what a fantastic thing we have in this day and age. To get the word out there. So
I think it took us years though to build that up, because we could always fill a room once with friends and family and people, and then how about the next time? Because the club owners, they put it on you to fill the room. It's on the artist to do it.
Yeah.
I don't know that that's appropriate, but that's the paradigm now. So it was kind of for me anyway. I woke up and go, hey, wow, people are coming, and because I used to wonder, we have a half a house full, what's it going to be? And now pretty much all of a sudden we've got a body of work, and so I guess it's just a matter of one foot in front of the other and keeping at it.
Yeah, it's promoting yourself on one side and then making sure that when you perform, it's a worthy product, and it's a great, so that people will continue to come back.
Yeah, and it's about, not that anyone asked me, but if I may chime in here, It's about networking, and it's about using the tools you have in your reach. And I think that Eric, the online saxophone school at ArtistWorks, I mean, that is a community of people that all have similar interests and are all in love with the same thing. So reach out to your fellow students, share links with your fellow students, links to, you know, your Bandcamp page or your Facebook page or whatever it is. Every one of those students, they have their circle of friends that has similar interests, and just hook up with each other, you know, and everyone help each other spread the word. That's what a music scene is about. Not just, here, go take my music and listen to it, but hey, what are you working on? I want to hear it. You know, use each other. You guys can be of great value to each other.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, and I think we see that happening on so many levels where the musicians, publishing companies like my publisher I'm with, Alfred Publishing, or Yamaha. Eric and I are both Yamaha people. You know, they pitch in, instrument manufacturers, publications, radio stations like KJazz. We're all pulling at the same end of the road in order to keep this music relevant. But,
yeah, I'm actually a silver guy, truth be told, but I do play Yamaha.
Sorry about that. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and Larry, you talked about this before. You play your butt off, and it is a matter of just, you know, when people hear you play, they're going to come back. I guarantee it. So just a matter of getting people to come out and hear you play, you know, and use that social media so that they will.
Yeah. So real quickly, we're running out of time, but you know, this is sparking a lot of conversation amongst the comments and questions. So just the 1 minute version. How did each of you get your start professionally speaking? When you made that step from just kind of playing in your room at night or playing in the high school band or whatever to actually taking that step towards becoming a professional? Just
get yourself out there as much as possible. That was what I tried to do. I practice, make sure that every single time you play, you're playing your very best, and try to get yourself into as many different situations as you can, because that's how things build. It's a word of mouth business, and the more you're able to impress people, frankly, the more your name will get out there.
Yeah. Yeah, for me too. I didn't ever feel like I had a big break. I can point to significant signposts along the way, but it's just a matter of consistency, staying in the game. And as Eric says, you know, don't take anything for granted. Do everything, especially when you're young and you have time for that. Meet someone, and get married, and pop out a couple of kids, and all of a sudden, you're not going to have the time to go and network at a club or hang out or write something. You know, so it's important to use the time you have when you're young.
Yeah, agreed. All right, well, Mr. Gordon Goodwin, thank you so much for joining us today. It was great.
My pleasure. Thank you very much. Really cool.
Mr. Eric Marienthal, you are the man. Thank you again, and thank you to all the students as well for the participation and the great questions and comments, supportive comments towards each other and towards Eric and Gordon here. We look forward to seeing you guys next month. We do these once a month, and be sure to tune in, even if it's not your main instrument. There's always the greater universal musical conversation going on here. Real quick, I want to announce the winner is Mark Gomez. Congratulations. Customer service will follow up with you. You just won 3-month extension to your current membership. A quick plug. The new Fat Band record's called An Elusive Man, and it's with Gordon Goodwin, the Little Fat Band.
Yay!
And that's just a subset of the big Fat Band. Very cool. All right.
Okay.
And thanks to everyone for tuning in. Don't forget to tune into, we still have about an hour left of the Gordon Goodwin radio show on every Saturday from 12 to 2. What's the station? 98.1?
88.1.
88.1 down in LA, correct?
Okay.
Cool.
Yes. Yeah.
Alrighty. Thanks, guys. We're signing off. There was another good one. We'll see you all next month.
You guys, thank you.
Thanks a lot.